It's 4 o'clock in Radio Cairo, time for World of Info. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk. Dua Muhammad is at the control. And it's a really beautiful afternoon in Cairo, and we really have a great honor to have with us His Excellency Ambassador Hong Wok, Ambassador of Korea in Egypt, a man with a great experience as a diplomat who started his career in Nairobi, Brussels, New Zealand, Rome, and ended before coming here in Egypt as the Ambassador of Korea in Egypt, as the Director General of Africa and Middle East section in the Korean Foreign Service in Seoul. So a man with a great experience, a degree in economics and a master's degree in international relations from the University of California, San Diego. Really, it's a great honor for us to have you with us here, sir, in our radio program, World of Info. Thank you very much for having the time to come with us, sir.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy and honored to be here again.
It's a great pleasure and honor. We met last year, and a lot of water, as we mentioned, has passed under the bridge. You are a very active ambassador, sir. Not only you were able, through your cleverness and your sharpness and your activity as a diplomat, to bring the President of Korea himself to visit Egypt and to meet with President Sisi 2 weeks ago, and also the Speaker of the Parliament, of the Korean Parliament, to visit Egypt in October, and signed many treaties in cooperation in fields that there were never even a cooperation in them. For example, the cooperation in the field of defense and defense industry, the building of a self-propelled Korean gun here in Egypt in the AOI. This gives us an important information that you are a very active ambassador. Not only did you go into politics, but you entered in the field of public diplomacy. You are the most liked ambassador in Egypt. You're followed up by a lot of Egyptians. Your show with Mrs. Mona Shazli, your appearance in the show of Mona Shazli really has touched the hearts of the whole of Egypt with your playing on the sax on the phone. So there are a lot of things to talk about. Sir, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much for the very kind and generous introduction about myself and my activities. I think I am the one of the most, luckiest Korean ambassador to be based here in this great country at a perfect timing. Actually, bringing my president to here is beyond the ambassadorial capability. He was supposed to come to this beautiful country in March of the year 2020,
yes,
which was supposed to be delayed, postponed due to the outbreak of the pandemic. And I was lucky enough to coordinate between our two sides in selecting the date of the historic visit by my president again. But basically, Korea attaching great importance to its relation with Egypt. He was supposed to come here, and I was lucky enough to be able to come to this great country at the right timing.
No,
I
actually,
was very lucky.
Sir, you are
a lot of things are happening between our two great countries.
You're being very modest. Of course, Ambassador Young before you was also a very energetic and an active ambassador, definitely, and a dear friend as well. And we're sending his greetings, our greetings, both of us, to him in Korea. And of course, when we talk about the Korean-Egyptians relations, we'll have to dedicate a big part of our show today to this part. But we'll start by brainstorming, because our dear listeners were going to refresh their memories and telling them about how Korea has passed like a phoenix, rising from a devastating war in, shall we say, the war of independence or the war of division or whatever type of war we can call it in the Korean Peninsula following the World War II, with a lot of casualties and a lot of blood and a lot of life losses. And for 3 years consecutively, that was a very bitter war. Nobody expected that Korea will rise out of this tragedy, and always the 38th parallel remains as a division of the Korean Peninsula. So how do Koreans of today look at this dividing line 38th parallel?
Right. Firstly, I'm always surprised to, witness your extensive knowledge on Korea and the history of Korea and the Korean Peninsula. That's right. The 38th parallel was the very demarcation between North and South Korea right after, since the end of the Second World War, due to the policies of the Soviet Union and United States at the time, and also due to the outcome of the Korean War, which broke out in the year 1950 and lasted for 3 years. Technically speaking, both of the Koreas are still at war. We did not sign the peace treaty. We just signed the armistice, the truce.
Yes, the truce.
Yeah, the truce. And at the time of signing the truce, another, demarcation was drawn. Aside from the 38th parallel, we call it like DMZ, another
demilitarized zone.
Yeah, demilitarized zone along the 155 miles of what we call military demarcation, which is a little bit different from the 38th parallel, but almost it is from the western part of the Korean Peninsula to the eastern end. It is 155 miles long, but it is 4 kilometers wide, 2 kilometers from the border to each of the Koreas. So we have 4 kilometers of demilitarized zone for 155 miles. And we still consider it a kind of psychological and physical block dividing, one race, one nation into two parts.
It's as if like it's a Berlin Wall, right? More or less.
Yes, and all of the Korean Peninsula was devastated due to the the 3-year war. And luckily enough, Korea was able to rise from the devastation to a decent, a member of the international society. Not only thanks to the passion by the Korean people, but also thanks to the assistance from the international society, including our Egyptian friends. So Korea is virtually the only country who was able to transform its status from being the beneficiary of the international assistance to a decent donor of it. However, still, Korean people consider the very demarcation to be a kind of obstacle dividing, our nation into two parts. And but according to some, especially young generation people, they begin to consider North Korea to be a foreign country, not a part of their nation.
In spite of definitely you have a distant cousin over there, more or less.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We can always say that. I mean, it's the same race, it's the same. I've been like
Indeed.
that for centuries.
That's why we are still trying to restore the inter-Korean relations. And we want our North Korean counterpart to come back to the negotiation table for signing the peace treaty and for reserving what we call North Korean nuclear issue. They are developing nuclear devices at the time when their people are suffering from economic difficulties.
Of course. So when we look at Korea of today, we find that the country has progressed, for example, from the 60s, when the GDP was very low, and the share of every citizen was almost minimal. And suddenly, the country started progressing rapidly, improving very much the economic condition of the population, and the impoverished are becoming more and more or less getting into the middle class, and the country is the home of UN Green Climate Fund and leader in low carbon green growth. How is that possible, and how can Korea help the developing countries in this field? Because a rising country, a country that found that its only way to success is to become an industrial country, and industry means pollution, and pollution means you should not be green friendly or green climate friendly. Suddenly you were able not only to keep your status as an industrial nation, but also to make this industry more or less clean, and adopting this technique of cleanliness as a sort of a motto and a sort of an aim of the consecutive governments of Korea. How is that possible, sir?
Wow, still it's a great, climate change is still a great challenge to Korea, and that is why we are pursuing what we call digital green economy. And that's true. Korea is trying to contribute more to the issue of worldly global climate change by way of, for example, hosting the headquarters of the Green Climate Fund, and also Korea, as you rightly mentioned, Korea was the only role model or example of transforming its status from the developing countries to the one of the developed nations. We think we can do a kind of coordinating role, in narrowing the gap between the positions of the developing countries and developed nations in the field of climate change. Egypt is hosting the COP27. Yes. November this year, and I've been to Bengbang solar power plants in Aswan just a few
days ago. I mean, you were there in Aswan. Yes, I've seen the pictures,
and I was able to see the great potential for Egypt in terms of developing renewable energies, and I was impressed with the perfect facilities there, and that's why I think Egypt more than deserves to host such a global event.
We have not only the solar energy, we have the wind energy.
Wind energies,
and yes. Of course, this can really help Egypt putting it on the map of greenery, as we can use the expression.
But at the time of the COP27, I think the most important challenge for the hosting country might be narrowing the gap between the positions of the developing group and the developed groups. And Korea, as a country who transformed its status from being developed to developing to being developed, so I think we can contribute some added value in narrowing the gap between the two camps. So. Yes, we should be. We are open to any creative suggestion, but we are ready to be part of the precious process in drawing out some common solutions in tackling the common global challenges of climate change.
So definitely you cannot be advanced in the field of green climate, without being advanced in the field of education. Republic of Korea is the third least ignorant country in the world. Is it just due to the friendly language? Because Korean language is very friendly for learning, for education, for the numbers and the letters, makes it very easy for the youngsters to grasp the knowledge. And also there is another factor which only the Koreans know the secret, which is the dedicated Korean mothers who are pushing their children to the edge of perfection. So the Korean mothers are there, right?
Exactly. Wow. Yeah, that's the secret of Korean, I would say, economic development. The passion for education by the parents, and also as well as the children themselves. They have a great passion for education in order to get a better life, in order to enjoy the upgraded living standard. Yes, that's true. Going back to the Korean language and Korean characters, I don't think the Korean language is one of the most convenient language for people to use in their daily life. But the very Korean characters, what we call Hangul, is originally invented for facilitating the writing and reading of the ordinary people at the time, especially the
in the medieval centuries.
Yes, what we call minor people, including female and poor people. At the time, we were using Chinese character, which is very complicated and difficult to learn. That is the reason why the Korean king at the time, King Sejong, decided to invent new national letters for ordinary people in order to facilitate their daily life and in order to provide them with more chances to be educated. It was a very...
this was in the 16th century, right?
15th century. It was a kind of, I would say, language reform, a language revolution, virtual revolution.
So it's the same time of the print house building or the printers building in the 14th century, and in the 15th century, suddenly we found also Korea's trying to do this innovation in the characters.
That's right. Korea invented the what we call the metallic printing method for the first time. We believe for the first time in the world in the 12th century, and together with the
before Gutenberg, right?
Yes, before Gutenberg. You know that. So in combination, combination of like this kind of several factors, like the printing technology, together with invention of very convenient national characters, and also together with the big passion for parents and children to get better education for better life, all contributed to the I would say fast development of the whole Korean society.
Since we're talking about education, I really was amazed when you appeared with Mrs. Mona Shazli in her popular program, and you were having a saxophone. So there is strong relation between your education and the extracurricular activities, right, in Korea. Almost as you have mentioned in this program and mentioned in other programs before, is that every young child in Korea will have to have a hobby, not just sitting for studying forever. So there is some extracurricular activities that he would choose, or his parents would help him or her to choose. And you were your choice was in music, right, sir?
So right. They are Korean students are encouraged to take extracurricular activities from sports to music and fine arts, and even after school they get some private lessons to get better skills in their extracurricular activities. But for me, yes, I try to learn some arts and music in my school days. But for my saxophone, I played the saxophone, at the Mona El Shazli show. I played the national anthem of Egypt. I played the Dalata Diet.
Yes.
Very beautiful
3 heartbeats.
Egyptian songs. But I decided to actually begin my saxophone only 10 years ago, when I was in Seoul.
16, right?
I was 16. I'm 25 years ago. It was when I was 15. Thanks for the compliments. But yes. Actually, especially before I come here, I already began learning how to play national anthem of music by my saxophone. I had a plan to build a bridge, get closer to my Egyptian friends, my beloved Egyptian people, by showing that a foreign ambassador coming far away from Asia would like to do his best to get closer to the Egyptian people by trying to show his saxophone skill. Even though I'm a very poor, I would say, player of saxophone. I'm still a very amateur level, but just showing that I'm trying my best to play the national anthem of Egypt.
And you were very kind enough as well to share with us your followers on the Instagram and on Facebook that your dear sister also is involved in music and she plays piano, right?
That's true. I have one brother who is a wonderful guitarist, and my sister who is a professional pianist.
Oh, she's a professional
pianist. She's released like a couple of CDs of her piano play, and she used to actually play in Japan, but she came back to Korea these days, and she's very active in her YouTube channel. And these days, she is very happy to have several hundreds of Egyptian followers of her YouTube programs.
And she has played also some Egyptian songs, right?
Talat Adait
also as well.
And I'm planning to advise her to play more Egyptian songs
for her followers, right?
So for example, El Helwati,
Amit في الفجرية, right?
Or
the Sayyid Darwish,
right.
Really, so this is definitely a very it's becoming very much fashionable in diplomacy to go into the public diplomacy sector. Sometimes people thought that a diplomat is somebody who's wearing a tie and a suit and going from one meeting to another and from one reception to another. This could be true for the bystanders, for the people watching from outside. But from inside, these are people with flesh and blood who want to mix and match with the country that they're visiting and to send a message of peace and cooperation. And this can be only transferred not just by agreements, but also with emotional involvement and with cooperation. And I felt that, sir, you're doing a very intelligent job. Because usually the smartness of people is the one that's driving them to do things that are what we call extracurricular as well. So we're grateful for that.
You rightly mentioned about the very concept of what we call public diplomacy. Intergovernmental relation between Egypt and Korea is already super.
Yes, exactly.
But I want to make it on a more sustainable basis. In order to reach that level, we need to increase the people-to-people understanding between our two countries, because governments or government officials, including myself, including the ambassadors, we may be gone in several years. And the governments can change at any time according to the wishes and preferences by the people, which is applicable to both of our two countries. But people will remain forever. People will be there on the field. So, in order to make our relations to be a more sustainable one, I definitely think without winning the hearts, without winning the support from both our people, we cannot make our relations to be future-oriented or to be more sustainable one. That is the reason why we are putting more and more efforts into what we call public diplomacy. So we want to. The main purpose of our public diplomacy is to show to our Egyptian friends and people that Korea is here waiting to be a good friend to you. Without winning the understanding or without winning the support from the Egyptian people about strengthening of bilateral relations between Egypt and Korea, I don't think we can get a success in our diplomacy. So I would say public diplomacy is more important than what I call commercial or political diplomacy.
Of course, this is a very nice way and eloquent way to mention that, sir. So after the break, we're here still, His Excellency Ambassador Hong Jin-wook, the ambassador of Korea to Egypt, with his great achievements in Egypt and improvement and putting, the relations are always there and they're always in very good condition, but putting an icing on the cake of the relation between Egypt and Korea. Stay tuned with us in World of Info.
Thank you.
So, we're still listening to the World of Info from Radio Cairo, coming live from Studio 3 with His Excellency Ambassador Hong Jing-wook, Ambassador of Korea in Egypt. And you have just mentioned that the visit of His Excellency, the President of Korea, should have happened in March 2020. But unfortunately, the whole world has reached a status quo, and the world was almost paralyzed because of the COVID crisis. And Korea was, no wonder, one of these countries as well. It is a pandemic that has affected the whole world and took us a lot of time waiting for the vaccine to arrive. So Korea ranks very high in the healthcare scale of the world. And so the health system was definitely challenged with the COVID-19. And we have seen that you were going in great speed to do tests that for the COVID in almost all the population, and these tests are repeated in very short intervals to make sure that the population will not rise into the status of an epidemic. Tell us about this experience of Korea with the health problem of COVID, sir.
Well, I don't think I'm an expert in this area. However, I will try to reply. Korean healthcare system, as far as I understand, it has been very successful in adopting what we call universal healthcare system from the early 1980s. And as according to what I heard from my colleagues in that area, we were able to adopt what we call single payer healthcare system. Thanks to that, all of the Korean people were able to get access to the medical services whenever they need the services. And we had a kind of well-coordinated national consensus on when and how to pay for the insurance, premium, and according to the level of their income, they are advised to pay a considerable portion of their money for maintaining the universal healthcare system. So, thanks to those kind of arranged universal health system, Korean people all of the Korean people got access to the proper healthcare and proper medical services. And at the time of the pandemic, that was the reason why, in a way, all of people were in a favorable, favorable situation to get access to the immediate and proper test. Mm-hmm. And proper hospitalization if needed, proper treatment, on the basis of the fact that the government, the system itself has a kind of accumulated big data containing the detailed information about their health. So, for example, we need to distinguish a certain group of people with what we call like underlying illness in order to provide them with some specialized treatment in case they are caught with the new pandemic. So, thanks to those kind of accumulation of our data and our experiences in managing the what we call universal healthcare system, we were able to acquire a lot of data and knowledge to be utilized for that purpose. And however, we do have a concern on a certain we have a kind of concern about how to maintain the importance of privacy. The system itself is a very efficient and effective one, but that is why the system has like accumulated data concerning with people's health. So while we are making use of those kind of data for protecting and for treating patients and people, but however, we have to be also be very, careful in handling those privacy-related data. So there is always positive and negative side of an issue, and we have been very successful in maintaining those two conflicting goals so far. So pandemic these days, due to the Omicron, number of the infected person is growing at this moment. However, the still we are it is relatively under control because we don't see many serious cases. We don't see a sudden increase of the number of hospitalized persons. We do have enough empty beds in every major Korean hospital. So we are doing all right.
Definitely. So I think also part of the success story of Korea in this field is definitely because Korea is ranking as the first in the world as the most innovative country. How was that possible?
That's a very good compliment for Korea. I think that comes out of the fact that the Korea's R&D per GDP ratio is highest in the world. It is now around 4.8%. So 4.8% of the whole Korean GDP is invested into what we call R&D, expenditures, research and development expenditures. That means around 5% of the whole GDP is going for the purpose, going for the very research and development efforts for getting the innovative, knowledge and skills. And 4.8% of Korean GDP is going to the R&D, and 80% of the total R&D is actually done not by the government but by the civilian sector. 20% are done by the public sector, while 80% of the R&D are done by this private sector, meaning by the companies and by the private universities. They have their own incentive to do that, because Korea is. I don't think Korea is a small country with a population of close to 50 million. However, in order to get more, I would say, a lucrative business in this growing world, we decided to have what we call export-oriented economic development policy, meaning we decided to open our market, and we decided to go into the world market in order to get more competitive to survive in this globalized world. So thanks to the introduction of what we call export-oriented policy, Korean companies, in a way, they had to compete with their foreign counterparts, including their counterparts from the developed countries like the US and the European countries. That is the reason why, in order to survive the world competition, they need to get more innovative. They need to get more creative. That is the reason why they had to invest a considerable portion of their profits back to developing the new skills and creative and innovative technology to be again back to utilization of for the purpose of winning more portion of more market shares in the international markets. So it's kind of I would say a virtuous circle of like Korean economic cycle. Like you invest money for innovation, and that innovation also led you into more lucrative business. And with those profits, you have to invest again back to the research and development.
And I think this is what makes Korea one of the very few countries in the world, if not the only country, that has a positive balance in its trade with China, right?
Well put.
Yes, because it's the only country that exports more than it imports from China, and most of the export is in the technological industry, exporting things related to the very high-tech mobiles and cellular contacts and TV sets and a lot of things. So this makes Korea on the edge. Right.
Doctor, you know that we are co-producing Samsung and LG electronic products here in Egypt, and we are exporting our jointly produced products to neighboring countries in this region. And
that's what we want to talk about the Egyptian-Korean relations. That is what we say that before the president's visit and after the president's visit. Because before the president's visit, there is a lot of cooperation, and we're using the verb not only the past tense but also the present tense. And then we want to go further. What happened in the visit? So stay tuned with us in the World of Info with His Excellency Ambassador Hong Jin-wook, Ambassador of Korea to Egypt. So it's the World of Info coming live from Studio 3 in Radio Cairo. I'm having the pleasure and honor to have with us His Excellency Ambassador Hong Jin-wook, Ambassador of Korea in Egypt, and we are talking about the Egyptian-Korean relations. We have celebrated that Egypt has had relations with Korea since maybe 1992 in the form of the consular level, but later on it has changed into an embassy. And ambassadors have been always, and it's always, even during the consular times, the consular used to have the rank of an ambassador, indicating how important it is for Korea and Egypt to have such cooperation. I think in 1996 the relation has become on the ambassadorship level. 1995.
Yes.
So on the ambassador level and ambassadorial level, this gives a very big boost and input on the strong relations that exist between Egypt and Korea. Let's talk about the past for a few minutes about how Korea is having a lot of investment in Egypt. You have mentioned the high-tech investment of Samsung and LG in Egypt, and how far that they are doing this factories thing under complete Korean supervision, and the products are so well done that they are sent abroad and exported from Egypt, right, sir?
That's correct. And one more good news to share with our Egyptian listeners is that Samsung Electronics they decided to produce one very brand new, high technological products here in Egypt from this year, which is tablet computers. So they have their own factories in Benisuet.
And this is nice. It's in Upper Egypt, and this is giving a very good investment in Upper Egypt instead of
to what we call Decent Life Initiative, the more equitable development of the whole, both of the regions. In here in Egypt, and the tablet computer is what is the very modern, modern high technological products, and this will be the, as far as I understand, the first tablet production facilities in this African continent.
That's very interesting.
Yes, and making use of their accumulated experiences here in Egypt, successfully producing TV screens and other electronic devices like the washing machines by the LG electronics companies. So those kind of accumulated success stories of Korean companies made them to decide to go into more adventurous field of producing modern technological products like tablet computers. And I'm quite sure there will be another great success again, in not only being able to meet the domestic demand here in this country.
But for working for the export as well.
Definitely.
So we have the factories of high-tech factories in Egypt, that's LG and Samsung, and also you have what type of other investment here in Egypt?
Yes. We are actually President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi visited Korea in the year 2016. It was very successful and historic visit, and both of our governments signed what we call the comprehensive cooperative partnership, meaning we decided to deepen and diversify the scope of our cooperation. So from that time on, we have been diversifying the areas of our bilateral cooperation. So not only like just simple export and import matters, we came to think about utilizing the investment opportunities, making use of the complementary character of our industries, of both of our countries. And we are actually advancing into new areas. Like, for example, we signed a contract on producing metro trains here in Egypt. We are yet to sign the formal contract, but we have signed the memorandum of understanding in producing metro trains here in Egypt. We will be establishing production facilities in the Suez Canal economic zone in the East Port side if we finally sign the contract. And that is the reason why my president was actually able to visit the Adli Mansur station, where Korean-made metro trains are being already used by the Cairo citizens.
So I think we'll take a break, because after that we want to talk about this visit in particular of His Excellency the President, because it was a very busy 48 hours, right? 48 or 72?
48 hours.
48 hours.
I would say 49 hours.
49 hours. So we have to give this a big section of our program. Stay tuned with us in the world of info, coming live from Radio Cairo with His Excellency Ambassador Hong Jin-wook, Ambassador of Korea. So, Charles Aznavour, nothing better than having a warm song from Charles Aznavour to talk about the friendly relation between Egypt and Korea. Exactly. His Excellency Ambassador Hong Jin-wook, Ambassador of Korea, you had a great, successful visit of your president to our President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi last week. So definitely this was a very great chance of cooperation. Tell us about this visit and the 48 hours, which were 49 hours.
49 hours, yes. Yeah, it was a historic visit. It was the first visit by the Korean president in 16 years. And I was telling about the broadening of the scope of bilateral relations, cooperation. So from like electronics to like metro trains, and also we were able to find out many new areas of bilateral collaboration, especially by way of precious investment by Korean companies. And we, as a kind of preparation for the visit, we were able to designate Egypt to be our prior partner country for our development cooperation for the 5 years from last year to the year 2025, meaning we are able to make use of more financial and physical resources for our bilateral economic cooperation. That is why during the very 49 hours, the most important event was the very summit between the top two leaders. And right after this, they were witnessing like signing of very important memorandum of understanding between our two governments, starting from the one allowing Korea to provide as much as $1 billion US dollars of soft loans to our Egyptian counterparts. Those kind of newer economic cooperation will be used for new areas. As I already mentioned, metro station, producing metro train is one, and we are expanding it into another, newer area like desalination or kind of renewable energy development, or for example, electronic vehicle producing. We were able to witness the signing of a memorandum of understanding between one Korean automobile company titled Myeongshin and its Egyptian counterpart in co-producing the electric vehicles here in Egypt. So, and also another big milestone is that we were able to expand our scope of bilateral collaboration into military and defense industry cooperation. Yes. That was the reason why we were successfully able to sign the contract on the actually it is not just selling our K9, which is the self-propelled artillery to our Egyptian friends, but also it includes the clauses of co-producing the very Korean military devices here in Egypt. I hope, assisting our Egyptian friend in this region means we are reducing the threats of war in this region. Egypt, of course, Egypt being a key player in stabilizing this region. So, helping Egypt means helping Egypt to get more deterrence power in this region. So
definitely, and
Egypt is contributing to the stability in this region.
And Egypt is a very important, peaceful country that has always worked for peace, reconciliation in different parts of the world, and of course in its neighboring countries. The role of Egypt in Libya and in Sudan and in Gaza and in the Palestinian issue is very strategic role, which has been always built on the wisdom of the politicians of Egypt, and definitely the care and the understanding of President Sisi to the whole strategic importance of Egypt as a cornerstone in the middle of the world. As they always say, Egypt is the victim of geography, but I always say no, Egypt is a proud owner of its fate and a real important playmaker.
Exactly.
Because of its geography, right?
Yeah, that is why my president also invests a lot of his time for discussing many regional issues with his Egyptian counterpart. So not only in terms of economic cooperation, but also in terms of other fields like cultural heritage, we were able to also sign the memorandum of understanding on the cultural heritage cooperation.
Because Korea, a lot of people don't know, have their own cultural heritage sites that has been approved by the UNESCO and considered to be very important. Almost 9 cultural heritage sites in Korea that gives it a great step ahead. 15 now, right? Yes.
Which is
so it's increasing. I mean, it was 9
every year.
Before.
It was 9.
Yes, in our last interview. So
exactly.
So definitely, a country that is so proud of its cultural heritage is definitely like to cooperate in the same field with a country that has 1/3 of the cultural heritage in its lands.
Yes. Wow.
And did His Excellency the President have a chance to see the pyramids, or unfortunately
he did see the pyramid? I'm sure he was too busy to visit the site. However, I can say definitely from his accommodation, I am sure he was able to see.
So his accommodation was near the pyramids or something like that? That's a very good choice from your side, sir. This is lovely, because just to have a look from the famous hotel over there on the footsteps of the pyramid, this is the right choice, right?
49 hours is too short to see around all the attractive aspects of this great country. But he actually devoted. He allocated most of his stay here in Egypt for the discussion with his Egyptian counterpart and of witnessing the signing of many economic cooperation agreements and MOUs. And he has a very good economic roundtable in the presence of Egyptian Prime Minister and many Egyptian and Korean ministers and also companies from the civilian sectors. They had a very good discussion about the future-oriented collaboration, including the climate change and renewable energies, and also going into a newer area of cooperation, including the cultural, industry, areas. So for very short visit, but they were able to touch upon every important aspects of our present and future collaboration.
Mm-hmm. And definitely, of course, the point that you have raised is that your president, His Excellency, your president is very much interested as well in the investment in the Suez Canal area, the important investment sites on the northeastern part of Port Said. Definitely, it will give another boost to this promising piece of land in Egypt that should be a real technological hub for economical and industrial dreams that should be fulfilled.
We also signed the MOU on beginning the joint research on the possible free trade agreement or possible economic partnership agreement, handling both trade and investment aspects. And one of the clauses of the very MOU covers the possibility of establishing a kind of Korean industrial zone in the Suez Canal. Special economic zone area, economic zones.
Sir, it's really time flies. We have we have went into different aspects of cooperation.
I think I need to come here again.
Please. We need to talk more. And definitely you have to promise us, His Excellency Ambassador Hong Jin-wook, to come again to talk about Korea and Korean-Egyptian relations, and to talk about the next music episode of yours, what type of music that you're going to play. And we hope that you convey our best regards to your dear sister and brother, and hopefully she will come and visit Egypt, and maybe she can have a recital in the opera about her piano sector, of course. Definitely.
That would be wonderful.
That would be wonderful. We had the pleasure and honor to have with us today in this beautiful afternoon in Cairo His Excellency Ambassador Hong Jin-wook, Ambassador of Korea to Egypt. And my name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk. Dua Muhammad was at the control. Hopefully we'll see you next week, same time, same station, coming live from Studio 3 from Radio Cairo. Stay tuned on with further programs to come and further dignitaries to honor us with their visits, like His Excellency Ambassador Hong Jin-wook. Thank you, sir, for coming today.
Shukran, ma salam.
Thank you.